What's going on, everybody? Radio here, and we are back with another reaction. Today, we're reacting to Americans Crave Low-Cost Chinese EVs by Bloomberg Television. I have to be very honest. The title is not lying. Personally, I am craving those low-cost Chinese EVs. Have you seen them? The BYD cars are incredible. They cost like what? Like fucking 20 grand? The technology they have is incredible. It's just crazy that we don't have access to any of those or anything that's like those. Anything that's at that level for America. And it's so overpriced here. Everything's so overpriced that they're really doing a number with these Chinese EVs. And it's just, I feel like it could be a grass is greener on the other side, right? Long term, we don't know how reliable these cars are. Sure, I'm not buying the fact that just because they're Chinese, they're badly made. That we're past that era. That was 20 years ago. That was 30 years ago. We're way past that era. And especially with these cars, they really trying to make an impression. And they are making an impression because they're flooding into every country that is willing to accept them. And the only reason Chinese EVs are banned in America is because the American car companies know as soon as people can get a car for 20 grand, for 15 grand, and it's as good, if not better, than the cars that these companies are selling for 40 grand, both brand new, both have the same features, but somehow the features in a Ford cost way more than a feature in a BYD. What am I driving? A 2022 hybrid Camry. I'm definitely more inclined to look at EVs. I'm not 100% sold on a totally electric vehicle. I do like being able to pump gas. It's faster, it takes you longer distance, and it's more available everywhere. For now, who knows what's gonna happen 2-3 months from now, dog. But even with me being skeptical of EVs, I'm still very interested in these Chinese EVs because they seem very advanced, right? I definitely understand the skepticism. They're too advanced and they're promising too much for what they are and how much they cost. I want to fire back at that and say, okay, doesn't that show that a lot of these companies just overcharge for the same features and the same abilities that the other cars have? If a BYD car that costs 20 grand compares to a Chevy that costs 50 grand, right? A Lexus that costs 80 grand, an Audi, right? If it's comparable, why wouldn't you? Or even something cheaper, right? Even a Toyota, right? A Corolla, if it's comparable to a Corolla. Even though Corollas and Toyotas are like more affordable than the other cars. Or if it's comparable to a Honda, right? Why wouldn't you go for the cheaper option if it's like same one-to-one? The only reason we can't is because they're banned. Or would we be able to make that transition if these cheap cars were available? Are they gonna make an impact in American culture if they're available? Maybe. We don't know. We don't even have access. I would very much like to see, but they're literally banned. So we don't even have the ability to see, to compare. This shit sucks ass. I don't like the BYD cars. The quality is bad, right? I wouldn't know because they're banned. Why would you ban something if you're 100% sure it's not gonna harm your market and our cars are a better, higher quality? So the higher quality argument doesn't make sense to me because they're banned. If the Chinese cars were of a lower quality, they wouldn't sell as much, they wouldn't be as popular, and we would see, it would come out that these are of lower quality and they are catching on fire. But those narratives are just not there anymore, and more we're seeing more and more affordable cars coming out from China. Let's see what this Bloomberg piece has for us.
These videos are all over the internet.
This is what $37,000 gets you in China. And
I gotta say, right off the bat, Forrest's Auto Reviews, one of the best short form channels that you'll ever subscribe to. This guy is awesome. He shills the Chinese cars, not gonna lie, but he's very charismatic. He shows all the features, helps you understand what the car is all about within like a minute or less. I highly recommend subscribing to this guy. He's awesome, and I watched a lot of his videos. He's very super entertaining and just makes everything so digestible for everyday people.
you are not ready.
On YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, American car influencers are hawking Chinese car brands.
If you're a rich mom in China, you're probably driving this. This is the YangWang U8.
They're touting luxury features,
Everything massages you.
state-of-the-art tech,
Hey, I'm astonished.
And most importantly, low prices.
All this for $15,000.
But inflation-weary Americans watching these videos can't import the cars. Let's go back a bit. For decades, the global auto industry was really ruled by basically the US, Europe, Japan, and Korea. Then China decided to get into the car business. The Chinese government forced Western automakers or non-Chinese automakers to form joint ventures with state-owned Chinese companies. At first, they weren't very good at it because they were still new. At some point, Chinese automakers realized they were never going to beat them at gas cars, so they decided to play a different game. And the Chinese government created a national goal to develop electric vehicle technology.
This really shows the difference between free enterprise and a market that's controlled by the government, and you set expectations, right? And you actually set goals. Is free enterprise, you can't tell where it's going, and it can go in any direction, especially if it's unregulated. It goes in such crazy directions that you can bet on the weather. You can bet on if there's going to be a war. You can bet on if we're able to breathe tomorrow. That's your free enterprise right there. It's innovative, right? And it's unrestricted, and it allows people to be able to exercise their free will. But then on the other hand, you have something like this where it's directed attention and it's directed orders to innovate, and you basically use all available resources to innovate in this one direction. And there's a lot more incentives to participate in these programs and to help get your country to that level, to get the companies to that level. And I feel like obviously it's not the case for every Chinese person, right? And obviously it's not the case for the entirety of China, but at least you have a direction as a country to go towards, right? It is restrictive. It is oppressive. I'm not going to deny that, right? Chinese people having that sense of pride and being able to say, oh, we all in this together and we all going to work towards this direction, versus in America where everybody hates everybody and just wants to do their own thing at all times.
从底层逻辑上改变大家对新能源车的看法。
And a lot of Chinese entrepreneurs answered that call, like BYD, which started out as a battery company and then got into automotive. You also have Geely, where the founder Li Shufu started making parts for refrigerators. Xiaomi, they're a cell phone company that has now gotten into cars because cars are becoming really software driven.
Today we're at the headquarters of Caresoft Global at our new technical center. We have many vehicles that we have disassembled and done value analysis. We've done benchmarking work on. Here we have a Tesla Model Y, and it demonstrates their usage of mega castings. In doing that, they're able to reduce the mass, reduce the number of parts, reduce the labor and the time it takes to build the vehicle. So very innovative approach. Now we see from China the Xiaoping G6. They've come forward with a very nice vehicle, and if you look close, you find there is a mega casting in the rear. There is a mega casting in the front. There is no floor in the body. It's very, very similar. It's been imitated here. However, if you look closely and study it, you realize they've been improved upon.
Oh, that's exactly what I was talking about. Bloomberg is Bloomberg, liberal media. Let's not believe it. Let's not believe it. Right? I only believe what Fox News and America One and Newsmax telling me. Right? Can't believe Bloomberg. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. Is these cars are getting better. They're improving and they're iterating on them over and over and over again, and they're able to iterate on them at a faster rate than American car companies are. Because American car companies have their own incentives, have their own shareholders that they're bound to. I'm not saying which side is better, but I am saying that Chinese EVs seem to be going in a direction where they're just getting better and better than American EVs and American cars. And they're getting cheaper. How is that a bad thing?
Chinese auto industry, brand by brand, this drive to imitate, to improve, to increase, and to do it very, very quickly. And we're reminded, it's not the big that eats the small, it's the fast that eat the slow. So when you look at the speed of the Chinese auto industry, I think the traditional OEMs, though.
It's the fast that eats the slow, and that also applies to AI and all the things that we're talking about in AI, where the fact that the person that can innovate the fastest and iterate the fastest on AI is always ahead of the game, right? So it's the same thing in this.
Those from North America, those from Europe, they get it, they understand. This cannot be left unchecked.
Car companies in the United States definitely need to worry about Chinese cars, and they are worried about Chinese cars. Even though it's basically impossible to sell them in the United States today,
the reason is a combination of tariffs and regulation that's linked to national security. In 2024, under President Biden, the United States introduced a 100% tariff on Chinese EV exports.
Fucking
in
Biden.
addition to that, in early 2025, a new rule was introduced, which essentially banned the sale and import of vehicles containing technology linked to China. This in practice makes it very, very difficult for Chinese companies to import into the United States.
even though the US has these policies in place to keep Chinese cars out, they're growing almost everywhere else in the world. They have a lot of
So
market share
jealous.
in Mexico, they're growing in Brazil, they're taking over Europe, they're big in Southeast Asia. Think of it as a global pie that's a finite size. And so when the Chinese come in and take share, that means another automaker like Toyota or Ford or Volkswagen is losing share.
Because they're not innovating.
Just like we're seeing the growth.
They're not innovating. They're not respecting what the consumers want. And all they're focused on is extracting as much capital from the people that are paying them to drive these cars. And in return, what do they get? Fucking a bad experience, an overpriced experience. Features that are stripped out, they gotta pay for. Parts that are just way more expensive to replace and harder to replace. It's just over and over and over again. You get screwed by big companies that are taking advantage of you in America, and then you look. It could be a grass is always greener. I'm not denying that, and I'm not blind to that. But at the same time, let's call it what it is. As you look across and you see, oh wow, these cars are cheaper, they are better, and they're able to innovate on them and just keep making them. They're able to innovate on them and keep iterating on them. So they're only gonna get even better than what they are right now. So why wouldn't you want something like that in America? Why wouldn't you want a company that is able to do all that? It's just so stupid that because there's these big companies here, they're restricting the ability to innovate and the ability to be able to compete in this market. Amazon was trying to come out with like a truck. I don't even know if the truck is still out yet. They're trying to come out with a cheap truck because there's a huge market of people who need trucks, but the trucks are very expensive. People who want trucks to do X, Y, and Z, but the trucks are very expensive. So there's a market for cheap trucks that are electric because they don't care about engines. They want to be able to haul. There's a big market for people who need to haul, who need that space in the back. Where is that electric truck that Amazon was making for like 20 grand? Slate truck EV release date. Low volume customer deliveries starting in late Q4 2026. You still gotta wait almost a whole year now. You were waiting since last year. You gotta wait another year just to get these trucks. And people need it. And you basically, if you're able to, it goes both ways, right? I'm an entrepreneur that have his own business that's moving, that's selling material, that's helping build stuff, right? I have my own little business, but I don't have a truck yet, and trucks are way too expensive, and I'm trying to work to save that money for a truck, but I still need to haul stuff, right? If you're providing that Slate truck, you're basically help stimulate the economy in the way that you would want, right? You would help free enterprise prosper. You feed the system that is keeping this country going, which is capitalism, which is, I have this business that is helping other businesses get to where they need to go, right? I'm selling them this truck that is cheap enough that they can get started, and they either scale with these trucks, or I have other options that are more expensive that have more capabilities for them, so they can just upgrade. They either scale or upgrade to the next level. But you buying goodwill because you provided them that first initial cheap option, and it was reliable. And that's just people who are entrepreneurs, and that's people who got businesses. There's a lot of people that just want to be able to haul stuff, and they don't got no business. They just got little things they need to haul here and there. They're not gonna buy a F-150, and it's just you're just missing out. You're just missing out on this whole market, and it'll just be status quo of F-150s and Ford and they just have this monopoly of trucks, and they can just raise the prices and charge whatever they want for it. We'll see what happens with Slate.
Of physical EV exports from China, viewers in the US on social media are also seeing them more. Last December, YouTuber Marquez Brownlee posted a review of the Xiaomi SU7, and he was really impressed with it.
There is basically no question in my mind that if a car like this was available in the US for $42,000, that it would crush.
The review went viral with over 10 million views. It really woke Americans up to just how sophisticated Chinese cars have become. China's entry into the global...
You would still have naysayers that say, oh, it's a Chinese car, or whatever, have fun getting burned alive. You would still have all those people coming out of the fucking woodwork because they just can't. I don't know if they just can't handle the fact that the Chinese car makers are getting better. These cars are more affordable than American cars, or is it just a point of pride for them to just put other people down? Like, we can have people talking good about Chinese cars. Like, what? How dare you? Like, no, like, come on, bro.
Auto market is very controversial because it's threatening the future of a lot of existing companies. There's really dueling narratives about what's going on. If you talk to people in the US or in the West, they'll say that China is not playing fair, that they're getting support from the government. But one thing I noticed on TikTok is that there's a really different narrative there. And what you see is that the story is more it's the US who's being unfair and hypocritical by not letting American people buy them.
While lurking on Red Note, I found out about this car.
What was I saying, right? Am I a freaking... Did I not just call it earlier before we even press play on this video? Like, the US is a free and fair market, but they banned these cars.
We can't sell this car because it's Chinese.
I think when people on social media see Chinese cars, not only are they so impressed with the technology and the price, they're also really mad because cars have become really unaffordable in the United States. The average new car price in the US is around $50,000.
It's
That's just
stupid.
out of reach for more and more people, especially.
It's so stupid. It doesn't need to be this way. There's such a big market for affordable cars, but because automakers know that they can charge a certain price point and people still buy it, they'll never go down below that. And if anything, they just keep raising the price because of supply chain issues, because they innovate with AI and they lay off their workforce, they get to charge it to us. So not only they save money from the AI, they make more money because they're charging more cars. Like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Like, what the fuck is happening here? It's so stupid. And it doesn't need to be this way, but they all know exactly what each other charge and what each other is gonna charge. So nobody even tries to undercut the market. Nobody even tries to actually make an affordable car that customers would buy and would move towards, right? They all decide altogether, like, we can't go below this, right? We need to make these cars need to make this amount of money. I know a part of it is the production process in America is more expensive. I 100% get that. I know exactly why and how that's happening, because you got all these small parts, you got all these small components that go in the car. You need to outsource your tools, you need to outsource the maintenance and all that. I definitely get why these cars are expensive to a certain point, but at the same time, there's no way you can't innovate to bring that expense down so that you can make the car affordable. So if you sell three $20,000 cars, that's $60,000 versus the one $50,000 car that you would sell. But it's more worth it to sell that $50,000 car, because if you sell 2-3 of those, it makes way more money. So the goal is to sell the highest price you can with the highest quantity. And you don't want to go for affordability because that market doesn't really benefit you in the short term.
Now with inflation and high interest rates. Everyone talks about how quickly China is moving. They can design, develop, and produce a new car in 18 months versus 3 to 5 years for a Western car company. And that brings up questions of quality and reliability. But the truth is, we don't know yet, because EVs are still a relatively new technology. Even though there may be some questions in consumers' minds, that doesn't mean that the legacy automakers aren't looking to China to learn how to make cars like they do.
What you're seeing right now is actually a lot of big European automakers engaging with Chinese technology very openly. US companies have been very hesitant, and it's been very difficult for them to do the same. So it's a really difficult balance to get right. I think the future of the US automotive industry really hinges on the question of whether or not there's going to be more openness to Chinese technology. It might mean more openness to maybe licensing some Chinese technologies.
Or maybe more openness to make more affordable cars. I wouldn't even want a Chinese EV if American EVs and American cars were comparable at that same level. Don't even engage if you don't want to engage with China and with that technology. Just innovate with what you got. But the price of American innovation is you pay the higher price. You pay the higher price tag at the end. The customer pays the highest price tag because it's American innovated versus Chinese innovation, where they bring the cost down. That's the main difference. Is Americans innovate to get the cost up. Chinese people innovate to get the cost down.
These kinds of arrangements, if done carefully, could be a real boon for the US industry. It could allow for more innovation.
Even though the US has been successful so far in keeping Chinese cars physically out of the country, they can't control what people see or what people think. The Chinese cars are very hard to resist for a lot of people, and I think that puts pressure not just on US politicians, but also the rest of the auto industry to have more affordable cars that are as good as the Chinese, or else people are just eventually going to vote with their wallets.
Thank you to our friends at Bloomberg Television. This was actually very informative. Kind of give us a picture of where we stand as far as EVs and the car market. Yeah, next few years is going to be interesting to see what these car companies do to be able to compete. Or maybe they won't. They will just lobby. They will just lobby the government and just ban more cars. Maybe we see Toyota cars getting banned because they're too cheap. Who the fuck knows, bro? But leave a comment. Let me know what you think of the Chinese EVs. Would you get one? Do you have an EV right now? What car you drive right now? How much you pay for it? Are you looking to buy a new car? Let me know what you guys are up to. Like, subscribe, and also let me know what you want me to talk about. But for now, radio out.